India's voice to the world. I am Deepika Mehto, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange pleads guilty to a felony charge in a deal with the US authorities, returns home to Australia after decades. Russia pins blame on the US for deadly missile attack on Crimea that killed 4 on Sunday, vows response. June the 25th marks the anniversary of emergency declared by India's former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in the year 1975. And in T20 Cricket World Cup, India beat Australia to make it to the semi-finals. Afghanistan, on the cusp of history, need a victory against Bangladesh to play South Africa in another semi-final. So those were the top headlines of the hour that we're tracking for all our viewers here on DD India Live. And now to begin with the biggest story of the day. Well, Julian Assange is free. He was granted bail by the High Court in London and was released at Stansted Airport during the afternoon, where he boarded a plane and departed the United Kingdom. Assange left Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison after having spent 1,901 days over there. On his release, WikiLeaks said this is the result of a global campaign all the way to the United Nations. This also created the space for a long period of negotiations with the US Department of Justice. The charges against the WikiLeaks founder in the United States stem from one of the largest publications of classified information in America's history. 52-year-old Assange has agreed to plead guilty to a single criminal count of conspiring to obtain and disclose classified US national defense documents. Assange is due to be sentenced to 62 months of time already served at a hearing on the island of Cyprus. And to get you the latest on this, I'm joined by DD India correspondent from Washington, Nick Harper. A very good morning to you, Nick, from India. First of all, what is the plea all about?
Morning, Deepika. Yeah, quite an incredible new twist in this long-running legal saga, and it now does appear that all of this appears to be in the home stretch. Bear in mind that back in 2010, when WikiLeaks published these classified documents and diplomatic cables, they numbered about 700,000, and at the time they were the largest security breach of classified documents in US military history. We are told that Julian Assange has now left the United Kingdom. He's travelling by plane, and at the other end he will face a court. During that court appearance, we're told that he will plead guilty to a single plea, and in return he'll be sentenced to 62 months in prison. But he's already served 5 years in jail in the United Kingdom, so therefore no new jail time will be added. Instead, he will be a free man and be allowed to return home to Australia. Really quite incredible when you bear in mind that when he was indicted here in the United States back in 2019, he was facing the possibility of 170 years behind bars if he were to be convicted. And one interesting twist in all of this, throughout, he has fought the extradition from the United Kingdom to serve trial here in the United States. So this court appearance won't be taking place in mainland United States. Instead, it'll be taking place in a far-flung territory, the North Mariana Islands. He'll be appearing before a judge there in about 22 hours' time from now. It'll be a historic court appearance and the end of a very long legal saga.
Also, Nick, we are learning the fact that it is yet to be approved by a federal judge. What next are we expecting on this?
That's right. In theory, it needs final sign-off by a US federal judge. We're not exactly sure when that will take place, but in theory, at some point in the coming hours. It's nighttime here in the United States. It's about 9:30 in the evening. It could take place when courts reopen on Tuesday morning. But in theory, that is something of a formality because the Department of Justice has already signed off on this. They say that they're happy for him to plead guilty because he's already served 5 years in jail, which is longer than most other people who are convicted of a similar crime actually end up in jail. And we also know that President Biden has been pushing for some time to get the case resolved. Incredible pressure from Australia, his home country, Julian Assange's home country. We've heard from the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, there, really pushing Biden to try and get the case dropped. And it seemed as if it was going to move in that direction. So backing from the President, backing from the Department of Justice. And in theory, when he appears in court in about 22 hours' time, it will be a quick appearance. And after that, he'll be a free man and heading home to Australia.
All right, this is a huge development. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us and bringing the latest on this developing news. Moving on to Russia. Russia has now accused the United States of direct involvement in Sunday's deadly attack on Sevastopol, Crimea on Sunday. Now, Russia's defense ministry said the missile used by Ukraine were US-supplied ATACMS missiles and claimed they were programmed by US specialists. The Russian Defense Ministry said 4 of the US-delivered Army Tactical Missile System missiles equipped with cluster warheads were shot down by air defense systems, and the ammunition of a 5th had detonated in mid-air. Russia also condemned the lack of response from the UN Secretariat, calling it an example of double standards.
All responsible for this and other terrorist attacks will be held accountable. The fact that the US is directly involved in this crime is beyond any doubt. The lack of any meaningful response from the UN Secretariat that is supposed to stand against such obvious crimes and violations of international law is even more regretful. It is a clear example of double standards of the UN Secretariat, who is very eloquent on other occasions.
Now, 4 people and over 150 more were injured in the attack as missile debris fell on a beach nearby. Now, the US ambassador to Russia, Lynn Tracy, was summoned to the foreign ministry with a warning that a retaliation would follow. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said that Washington provides weapons to Ukraine so it can defend its sovereign territory, including Crimea.
We provide weapons to Ukraine so it can defend its sovereign territory against armed aggression. That includes in Crimea, which of course is part of Ukraine. And Russia could stop this war today and end the suffering caused by the war Russia launched today if it would stop its occupation of sovereign Ukrainian territory and stop launching attacks on civilians.
Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has replaced the commander of the Joint Forces Command of Ukraine's military. Zelensky said he had appointed Brigadier General Andrei Natov as the new commander of the Joint Forces of Ukraine's armed forces. Andrei have replaced Lieutenant General Yuri Sutol. The announcement was made after a series of reports that Sutol had performed badly in more than 2-year-old conflict against Russia. Now, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant arrived at the State Department in Washington on Monday for talks with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Gallant discussed the next phase of the Gaza war and escalating hostilities on the border with Lebanon. The Hezbollah began attacking Israel shortly after Hamas's 7th October attack that sparked a conflict, and the sides have been trading blows in the months since then. Hezbollah has said it will not stop until there is a ceasefire in Gaza. Earlier in June, Hezbollah targeted Israeli towns and military sites after an Israeli strike killed the most senior Hezbollah commander yet. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pressed Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant on the need for Israel to swiftly develop a robust post-war plan for Gaza and ensure that the tensions with Hezbollah on Israel's northern border do not escalate further. Gallant has been on a trip to Washington, D.C. and has also met Amos Hochstein and Brett McGurk, the top aides to U.S. President Joe Biden, as well as CIA Director Bill Burns. He's set to meet with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Tuesday. And in the United States, the Rapidan Dam in south-central Minnesota is in imminent failure. Local authorities have notified local residents of the possible danger as well. The dam is at risk because of debris that has accumulated along the Blue Earth River after days of rising water levels. Authorities have not issued mandatory evacuation orders, but residents have been warned of rising water. Authorities said they are aware of power outages and are monitoring several local bridges in case they need to be closed because of moving debris. A scandal over bets placed on the date of the United Kingdom election continues to dominate the campaign trail. There are reports that an investigation into betting by members of the Conservative Party is expanding, and the Conservatives have launched their own probe into the claims as well. DD India's Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says that his Conservative Party is carrying out its own investigation into the growing scandal around bets being placed on the date of the snap election. He insists that he doesn't know of any further Conservative Party candidates being investigated by the regulator, the Gambling Commission, at this stage, and the Prime Minister says he himself is not under investigation, but he's still facing major criticism from the other parties. The Labour leader Keir Starmer says if he were a leader of a party which had candidates facing allegations like this, that he would suspend them. The Liberal Democrats have called for the Prime Minister's ethics advisor to investigate, but also to look into whether any cabinet ministers may have placed any bets on the date of the election. And this is all making the final couple of weeks of the election campaign very, very difficult indeed for a Conservative Party already trailing by some distance in the polls. All of the polls still have the Conservatives around 20 points or more behind Labour. So the Labour Party, going into the final week and a bit of the campaign trail, are doing everything they can to try and encourage their voters out on July the 4th when election day gets here. They are trying to urge against complacency and any of their potential supporters feeling that it is a done deal that Labour will win the election.
It's time to take a quick and short break here on DD India Live, but still to come on the other side. European Union adopts new sanctions against Russia, which for the first time hit gas exports as well. High tide in Mexico causes major damage at popular beach destination. And Italy enter last 16 as they draw against Croatia in a thrilling encounter.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live with me, Deepika. Now, the European Union's foreign policy chief says a plan has been devised to ensure Ukraine receives funds through Russian frozen assets. European Union foreign ministers convened for talks on Monday on how to navigate Hungary's opposition to support for Kyiv. William Denslow reports from Brussels.
Josep Borrell has warned that, as evidenced by Vladimir Putin, Russia's president's recent trip to North Korea, Moscow is planning for a long-haul war in Ukraine. He says for that reason, investment for Kyiv in its war effort must continue unabated. There are two sides to what the EU is trying to achieve when it comes to its support for Ukraine. The first is tightening the purse strings on the Kremlin. We've seen evidence of that by the fact that the EU has recently passed its 14th round of sanctions on Moscow, this time largely targeting liquefied natural gas that Russia produces. The other major part of it is providing military support for Ukraine going forward. One huge issue for the European Union has been Hungary, which has been a major holdout for the EU's efforts to provide Ukraine with greater military assistance. However, Josep Borrell says that EU members have found a workaround because the fact that Budapest earlier this year abstained from a vote regarding Ukrainian funding. Borrell says that that means they can move forward without Hungary's participation to get some degree of financing passed. He says that is to the tune of around $1.5 billion in military assistance. It also potentially provides a green light for the use of frozen Russian assets. Recently, when G7 leaders met in Italy, they agreed on a plan to provide Ukraine with a loan to the tune of around $50 billion that would then be paid back with those frozen Russian assets. When it comes to further developments for Ukraine, well, the first conference of accession talks for Ukraine to potentially join the EU is scheduled to begin on Tuesday in Luxembourg. That'll really be an opportunity for both sides to agree or to start the process of agreeing on a framework for Ukraine to begin its path towards joining the European Union. William Denslow in Brussels reporting for DD India.
In Mexico, high tide after the passing of tropical storm Alberto has caused major damage in the popular beach destination of Playa del Carmen in southeastern region. The foundations, furnishings and facilities of the beach clubs and the hotels were damaged by the water. Beaches were also reduced by the water, leaving less space on the sand for the tourists. Authorities hope the beaches will return to their normal state, but recognize that this year the intensity of the rain and drastic changes in temperature have been worse than in previous years. Now, India's former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi imposed a nationwide emergency in the year 1975 on 25th of June. Several opposition leaders were arrested during that. Emergency imposed citing breakdown of the law and order situation of the country owing to massive protests by the opposition parties alleging corruption by the Congress regime. During the emergency, Indira Gandhi bestowed upon herself the power to rule by decree. On the 21st of March in the year 1977, Indira Gandhi withdrew the emergency and announced general elections. The Congress party was ousted, and the Janata Party, led by Morarji Desai, gained absolute majority. Morarji Desai became the first non-Congress Prime Minister of India then. And now in DD India Live, it's time to get you all the latest from the world of sports. And to begin with the T20 Cricket World Cup, India entered into the semi-finals of the T20 Cricket World Cup with a 24-run victory over Australia in their final Super 8 match at St. Lucia on Monday. Now, the victory in Group 1 took India to 6 points, a mark that neither of Australia or Afghanistan and even Bangladesh could make it. Talking about the game, Rohit Sharma scored 92 runs off 41 balls with the help of 7 fours and 8 sixes as India posted a total of 205 for 5 in 20 overs. And in the chase, Travis had 76 off 43 balls and Mitchell Marsh's 37 of 28 kept Australia going. But once the duo departed, India dominated the game. India will take on England in the first semi-final match on Thursday now. And now to discuss more on this victory, I'm joined by DD India correspondent straight from Guyana, Taposh Bhattacharya. A very good morning from India, Taposh. Now, when we talk about yesterday night's match, Rohit Sharma's historic 92 and India's revenge-loaded match was well played. What do you think of the victory? Because Australia has finally been defeated by India.
Oh yes, finally. It's been coming. It's been a while, but it finally has come. And what a way to probably see to it that Australia doesn't make it to the semi-final. There are little slight competition still left. If Afghanistan, if Bangladesh manages to defeat Afghanistan, then Australia has a chance to, will go to the semi-final. But if Afghanistan, is able to defeat Bangladesh, then Afghanistan will make it to the semi-final. So for Australia now, a lot will be riding on how things will shape up in the particular match that is currently going on. So this particular match between Bangladesh and Afghanistan is of paramount importance. But we have to give a lot of credit to the ultra aggressive approach of Rohit Sharma. One may actually call it a row ball approach, taking a leaf out of the fast ball. The way Rohit played, even though Virat Kohli went back, India's 50 came out and 52 came out, and Rohit already has 50 out of that. He scored 50 out of that, and the way he played, especially Mitchell Starc in that particular over, when he scored 29 off him in that particular over. In his whole career, Mitchell Starc never gave more than 2 sixes, in an over. And here is a guy who just went ballistic and made sure that Mitchell Starc will never forget this particular over. You have to understand that Mitchell Starc is Australia's premier fast bowler, bowling at 145-50, almost touching 150 km/h mark. And when Rohit Sharma hits it stays hit. And Mitchell Starc in his, let's say, 4,000 overs, if you take a close look at his statistics, in his 4,000 overs, he has never given that many 29 runs in an over. So that from there onwards, a lot of confidence was given to the Indian team, and the way they went about their business, I would still say that they were at least 10-15 runs short. Looking at the way they were playing at least until 12th, 13th over. But again, kudos to the way Indian fielders, fielded. Their spinners actually came to the party. As I mentioned, the pitch will assist the spinner more than the pacer, and exactly what happened. Kuldeep Yadav again was one of the pick of the bowlers, picking up 2 wickets when it was really required. The catch of Akshar Patel to get rid of Mitchell Marsh was another turning point. So all these things click together for Team India, and in this tournament they look like a team to beat, and it will be interesting to see how England will go about Team India here in Guyana. We have already come to Guyana. All roads now come to Guyana, and it will be interesting to see how that particular match pans out between India and England.
And India and England, we are also reminded of the 2019 Cricket World Cup. Well, thank you so much, Taposh, for joining us and bringing us the latest on the match and how the cricket world is shaping up when we talk about T20 Cricket World Cup. And meanwhile, Afghanistan's captain Rashid Khan won the toss and opted to bat first against Bangladesh in their last Super 8 match on Tuesday. No changes are there in the lineup for Afghanistan from the game against Australia. However, for Bangladesh, Taskeen Ahmed and Soumya Sarkar return in place of Chakir Ali and Mehdi Hassan. The equation for Afghanistan is simple: win, and they go through at the expense of Australia, who earlier lost to India, as we saw. Now, Australia, meanwhile, will be rooting for Bangladesh to win, but not by a big margin, because the Tigers are still alive in the tournament. On to soccer now. Italy scored a last-minute equalizer against Croatia that sent him through to the last 16 of Euro 2024 in Leipzig on Monday night. Mattia Zaccagni rescued Italy with a 98th-minute equalizer in a 1-1 draw at a tense game against Croatia, whose tournament hopes are hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Luka Modric gave Croatia a 55th-minute lead. The result left Italy second in Group P on 4 points, with Croatia third, and waiting to see whether 2 points will be enough to take them through to the knockout stage as one of the best 4 third-place sides. And that's all for this edition of TD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the TD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on TD India. I am Deepika Mehto, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching TD India Live. Namaskar.